Right, it's another glorious day. I'm down at Conway Golf Club and we're testing a golf club that is it's a strong lofted iron, and we've seen plenty of those over the last couple of years. But I think this is a strong lofted iron with a difference. It's from HONMA. That's Justin Rose's brand that he's tied up with in recent months. And I'll put you through the test. I'm going to tell you why I think this strong lofted iron is a bit different and could be a bit of a game changer. Yeah, I'm back down at Conway Golf Club, and this is absolutely what a great day to be filming and testing these TW747 irons from HONMA. Now, they've brought a couple of sets of irons out in recent months. Two are forged, this one is a cast club. First question I want to ask is, how many of you have heard of HONMA before the deal they signed with Justin Rose in recent months? I know from my perspective, I'd only ever associated HONMA with a very expensive high-end product, and that's the only knowledge I had of them previously. And this is still an expensive set of clubs that they've brought out. We'll talk about the cost very, very shortly. But it's made in Japan, it's all about quality of craftsmanship. They really are suggesting they've built a top-end product here. And the price point, although very expensive, is lower than what they've put out there before. Let's talk about the price. $969 for 6 irons is a kind of general market price that I'm finding for these. So that's £160 per iron. So it's still very much top end, it's still very much expensive, and what I want to find out today is, what do you get for your money? Is that quality of craftsmanship going to make you a better golfer? Is that £160 going to help you score better when you're out there on the course, when you're using these TW747 irons? There's only one way to find that out. Get this camera moved, get hitting some golf balls, and let me give you my opinion on these HONMA irons. I don't know whether you picked that one up in the skyline, but it basically started off down the left and it stayed that way. What I'm noticing already with these is there's a very strong ball flight relative to loft. Again, don't forget these are stronger lofted, as we're going to keep saying throughout the video, but it's a very strong ball flight, and for something like that, playing a 5 iron off this tee, I think we're into a slight headwind, only a slight headwind, but again, that's not affected at all. The feel out of them, again, is something that I'm going to mention quite a bit through this video, I think, and in a positive way. That's the interesting shot for me, and the interesting thing, full stop, about these so-called strong lofted game improvement irons. So I played the number 10, which is effectively a pitching wedge. This is downwind into very firm greens here at Conway, and no issue with stopping a ball whatsoever. So this myth about loft and low spin, I've still not seen it out on greens, even in mid-July on a firm links track. But again, that's a different video and a message that no one seems to want to listen to. Anyway, just on the feel again, the big deal with these irons is that they have a very solid feel about them. I mentioned in the actual build of this club and how it's put together now, it looks in appearance, it looks high quality, it looks solid, and that's the feeling you get when you strike a ball. And they've done a tremendous job in terms of the sound and feel. I've mentioned this on the PXG clubs that I've got in the bag at the moment, in terms of how they've achieved in a cast club some unbelievable feel. Well, they've done that in these HONMA irons as well. Mentioned it with the sort of long wedge shots and the iron shot so far, and a bit of short game there, and on each of those 3 shots, once again, plenty of feedback from club head into hands, if that's the kind of thing that you like. If you've got a thing about feel, which I know certainly I have, These are very responsive. You certainly get plenty of feedback back into those hands. It's got, perhaps I'll play some more shots. There's a slight spring in the face. It does seem as though it's sort of firing out there, so that might be something that you'd get used to. And like I said, I'll play a few more shots before I confirm that. But it certainly feels like it sort of pops off that face quite lively. But for them 3 shots, again, superb in terms of the, I've said it before, like I said, on those cast clubs, to achieve this kind of feel is a real major positive, and perhaps a massive step forward in terms of what we're going to expect from cast clubs moving forward, because that's a real change from the cast clubs of old. I'm just looking at yardage there. It's leaked out slightly left to right, but this yardage is playing 175, and again I think that'll go pin high. This pin is right on her back tier, and what a great par 3 it is. But this is a 7 iron, 28.5 degrees loft, and that's always your barometer for where these go. So yes, they're strong lofted, but again, the big thing I talk about in every video is loft relative to ball flight, and I don't think it is, because again, or launch at least, because if you've seen the ball flight on that, it's the loft may be the loft of a 5 iron in traditional terms, but that's not the ball flight of a traditional 5 iron, and that's the major difference for me. So they've got plenty of tungsten weighting in the bottom of these irons, which again will help with forgiveness. It'll help that CG location and give us the assistance, the forgiveness, all the positive things that we need. But then it's counterbalanced by the stronger loft, which otherwise I think this ball would be literally going up into orbit. So the loft issue, again, for those of you who are critical of the stronger lofted and moving away from tradition, I think in a lot of instances, and this in particular, again, it just counterbalances what's packed in terms of that tungsten weighting, or whatever system a club manufacturer might use to make the game or the club a little bit easier to use in terms of forgiveness and launch. But again, 175 carry, good ball flight, good descent angle. That ball is stopping. It isn't going anywhere in terms of landing on greens. That's the big difference with these, and again, go back to what I said earlier on the video, is about the difference, what they've done with these things in terms of, yes, they're a strong lofted power bat, I've suggested in the title, but they've got plenty of playability, workability. I managed to just punch that one a little bit low, and you can do all of that. This is without doubt a player's club with a lot packed into it in terms of health. Finished right to the flag, but it's middle of the green, and I've hit a lot of long irons and talked about the longer irons, but down the short end of the bag, and I've got this, like I said, number 10, this pitching wedge. I've hit some shots around the green. It's got some great feel, and the ability, like I said, to flight the ball differently with the wedge as well, in terms of knocking it down a little bit. It gives you that versatility in this sort of head profile, I believe, but also that full shot in. Again, it's very, very sweet. Very, very sweet is the only way I can describe it, and again gives so much feel. And maybe in the longer irons you're not looking for it, but certainly down this end of the game, those scoring irons, then that's a massive tick in the box on these irons. Okay, so let's quickly just jump in and do the dry ball data thing. And I said this on a video that I did earlier on this week, actually, that's a big thing for me, big learning curve really, and I did it last year, is the more you get on course with products, the more you get a better understanding of how they perform out there in real conditions, which sounds an obvious statement to make, but even like sound and feel, it changes so much outside of that sort of enclosed environment that you find yourself in a driving range. But anyway, and again, so far in a more positive manner. So again, the feel and sound out of these things has been superb. Other things to notice, like I said, let's get the dry ball data up that I did collect. It's pretty obvious stuff, to be fair. I mean, again, we're not learning anything new here. It's strong lofted. It's going a long way in terms of a 7-iron. You can hit these things for miles if you really decided to give one a bit of a whack. But that's not the purpose of this video. The spin is low, and again, it's something that I always achieve in terms of what I see on indoor dry ball data. I don't really see that translated out there on the course, and again, I've referenced it already on some of the shots that have hit in. But the big deal for me is what they've done with this product is they've managed to make it in, they say, a medium-sized profile. For me, I would say it's more compact than that. It's certainly what you'd term a player's iron in terms of how it looks sat behind the ball. It's got a very, very thin top line, relatively thin sole, and again, overall profile from sort of heel to toe, to me, seems compact. But I'm saying this in a very positive way, because this is going to appeal to players who, like I said, have always in the past been driven away from what you'd class game improvement irons. And like I said, I'm not one for using these phrases, but that's the only way to really understand and categorize in a terminology that we're all sort of get very quickly. So for me, a club that's got strong lofted, plenty of forgiveness, goes a long way, plenty of helping getting the ball airborne. That's the kind of things that I would suggest of game improvement irons. But they've packed that into a very small profile. So for me, that's where it's a big move forward. In a way, it's similar to what I've seen in just a couple of irons so far this year, and I think it's going to be a trend moving forward. I think you'll see the sort of game improvement characteristics packed into smaller profiles like this, and they've done it in an extremely good way. Again, looks is a personal thing. I like it. I'd prefer if they didn't have the black insert in the back and it was an all chrome finish, if I'm being perfectly honest. There's this sort of slight carbon imprint in it. I think it slightly cheapens it, if anything, because the rest of the club, the finish on it is absolutely superb. It's a tough one to knock, and it's difficult to knock product right now, as we have done for the last 18 months. Most stuff that gets brought to market is good in one way or another, and they're aimed at certain golfers, and one club will appeal to another and vice versa. But in this, like I said, I think what they've done and why it's so different, why it's such an interesting product, is, without repeating myself, is this ability to have packed in what they've done into a small profile. It's an extremely playable iron. It's a player's iron still. It's going to appeal to a big cross section of people. The big one is the price, and at 160 quid an iron on a brand, for me, that still needs to do a lot in terms of marketing to get its profile, certainly in the European market anyway, into a position where it can sort of charge those kind of prices. That, I think, is going to be the tough sell for Honma. I might be wrong, and again, comments down below. Is that going to be an issue for them? 160 quid is an issue anyway, full stop, to trying to sell to a mass market. But that, coupled with the Honma brand, which for me hasn't got that familiarity that a lot of people might be comfortable with, is an issue. But the product is absolutely grade A. Seriously, if you get a chance, go out and try it. That's me done. No more to say. I'm going to carry on playing these holes. It's too nice to go home.